Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we try to do ministry better as we work together, sharing information and ideas. Today we have Dr. Thomas Marberry, who is a member of the Commission for Theological Integrity. He attended Randall University, Baylor University, and Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, and he has 21 years of experience in pastoral ministry. Dr. Marberry was Vice President for Academic Affairs at Randall University in Moore, Oklahoma. He is a distinguished professor of New Testament there as well. He has written a number of articles for Integrity and other Free Will Baptist publications. He's the author of commentaries on Luke, Galatians, and many of the Johannine epistles. He and his wife Wilma are members of the First Free Will Baptist Church of Oklahoma City, where he currently serves as pastor. And then for 9 years, he served as the president of a seminary in Mexico. So he has a lot of experience with Hispanic ministry. Dr. Marberry, welcome to our podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me. I look forward to participating. It is always an honor to share what the Lord is doing.
Excellent. So why don't you tell us a bit about your ministry there in Mexico? You ministered down there full time, but it also sounds like you've taken trips of people back and forth to Mexico from time to time.
Yes, I have. My work in Mexico started a number of years ago. That when I was teaching at Randall University, back then it was known as Hillsdale Free Will Baptist College. I was on the faculty there. I served as Vice President for Academic Affairs. And while I was serving as Vice President for Academic Affairs, Sister Janice Banks, who was teaching missions there at the time, arranged a mission trip to Mexico. And my wife and I went along with her and a group of Hillsdale students, and we visited several of our Free Will Baptist churches in Mexico. And the Lord really spoke to my heart on that trip. I have never been the same since. So I came back to the United States after that trip with the determination to develop my Spanish language skills and also to begin working with Hispanic people. And over the next 10 years, I took many different mission trips to Mexico, generally taking groups of Hillsdale students down to visit our churches and to visit our seminary and our schools down there in Mexico. And it was a tremendous experience. And then after approximately 10 years of that, the office of presidency of the seminary in Reynosa became vacant. And the Home Mission Department contacted me and asked me about going to Mexico to be president of the seminary. And my wife Wilma and I prayed about it. We felt that was the leadership of the Lord in our lives at that time, and we went. And we spent 9 years as president of the seminary in Mexico, and it was a great privilege. The Mexican Free Will Baptists are great people, and we very much enjoyed working with them.
So a mission trip turned into quite a mission is what it sounds like.
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, in the years that I was taking students to Mexico, and then during the 9 years at the seminary in Mexico, we were on the receiving end. We received many mission groups who came down from our schools and our churches here in the United States. And I have seen a lot of lives transformed on mission trips. As a matter of fact, we had some people saved on mission trips.
And it sounds like you saw something in Mexico, you fell in love with the people. It sounds like then you fell in love with the language as well, so you learned the language more as an adult.
Yes, I have. I had 4 years of Spanish in high school, but I never did much with it and lost a lot of it. And it was on that trip to Mexico that the Lord really spoke to my heart, because if you're going to work with Hispanic people, you really have no choice but to learn to speak Spanish. And I had the privilege of studying under some good teachers. And also with the time that I spent in Mexico, I was working with Mexican Free Will Baptists every day. And they gave me a lot of help, in understanding and developing the language.
So I think all of us could learn a lesson from that. What kinds of experiences have we had in the past that may be preparing us for something down the road? I suspect 10 or 20 years prior to you going to being a president of this seminary in Mexico, you might not have really considered doing this, but God was using something that started back in high school and then this mission trip all to come together to work.
Now, I would totally agree. There is no way that we can predict in advance what doors the Lord is going to open up for us. And the things that today seem to be the most insignificant may be the things that the Lord will use in a great way in our lives later on.
That's wonderful. Now, you've come back to North America, but or at the moment you're pastoring a church. Sounds like you're handling the English part, but there's also a Spanish-speaking ministry there. Tell us about that ministry.
Yes, that is correct. I'll certainly be honored to share that. Wilma and I came back to the United States in 2008. And I returned to Randall University, or Hillsdale as it was known at that time, and I became Vice President for Academic Affairs. And I continued my involvement with Spanish-speaking people, primarily with the Spanish-speaking people here in the United States. Then about 5 years ago, we accepted the pastorate of the First Free Will Baptist Church of Oklahoma City. That is the oldest Free Will Baptist church in Oklahoma City. We have been in Oklahoma City since about 1935. And we are located in the southwest quadrant of Oklahoma City, which is an area where there are a lot of Spanish-speaking people. And our church is bilingual in the sense that we have a Spanish language congregation. Dr. David Arteaga is our Hispanic pastor, and he and I work closely together. And it's a great privilege to work with him and with his congregation. And normally, I preach for the English-speaking congregations, and he preaches to the Spanish-language congregation, although we work closely together, and sometimes I have the opportunity to preach to the Spanish speakers also. But it's a privilege to work, and it's especially interesting to see how our Anglo congregation and our Hispanic congregation are learning to work together and to interact with each other. That is very interesting to observe.
So Acts 1:8 says, go into all the world. The world is coming into us. Sounds like what's happening there in Oklahoma City is an example of this, and also an example of an Anglo and a Spanish-speaking congregation coming together. Tell us a bit about how that's so interesting and what you have observed in this whole process.
Well, it is very interesting from several different respects. First of all, I should say that Oklahoma Free Will Baptists have an interest in Hispanic ministry. And it's really fortunate that my wife and I are able to work among the Oklahoma Free Will Baptists. If my memory serves me correctly, we have about 7 Spanish language Free Will Baptist congregations in the state of Oklahoma.
Oh, great.
And one of those congregations down at McAllister owns its own property. The other 6 are sharing facilities with English language churches. So we're having an opportunity to try to integrate and get the Hispanics and the Anglos to work together in a way that is really rather unique. In other areas of Free Will Baptist, we have Hispanic works. But in those areas, what has generally happened is the Hispanic churches have organized their own associations, their own associations separate from the English language congregations. That's not the strategy we're following in Oklahoma. What we have encouraged in Oklahoma is this. We encourage our Hispanic churches to go ahead and join their local associations and work in cooperation with the English language churches in that association. Sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle over issues of language and culture. But in the long run, we feel like that is the best strategy for us to follow. And it seems to be working fairly well for us. One of the most interesting works that is going on there is not at my church, but it is at the Southern Oaks Church there in Oklahoma City. That church is fortunate that they have large enough and well-designed facilities, and they have English speakers and Spanish speakers worshiping at the same time in different parts of the building. They will have a Spanish service going on in one part of the building while they have an English service going on in another part of the building. And that makes possible some rather unique opportunities because a lot of Hispanic families are divided linguistically. There are some members of the family who feel more comfortable worshiping in English while others feel more comfortable worshiping in Spanish. And that way, people can go wherever they feel the most comfortable. That's not what we do at First Church. We do not have the facilities for that. I wish we had. That our building is smaller, and our English speakers meet on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. The Hispanics meet at 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon, and then they also have a prayer service on Friday night. But we do things together periodically. We have joint services and try to do what we can to work together and cooperate together.
So I was going to ask you how we can minister to this population, and you're already really answering it. You're saying we need to do as many things as possible together, and from a denominational standpoint, we even need to be thinking about having the same associations, and that's something I think many of us who have observed is that you will have people within, especially the children, often more fluent in English.
Yes, the children that have grown up here in the United States likely speak English at school. They speak English with their little classmates and with their friends there in the neighborhood. So there are a lot of Hispanic families that are divided linguistically. I think the first piece of advice that I would give to our denomination concerning Hispanic ministry is simply to be flexible. What works in one local church may not necessarily work in another local church. And I think we just need to look around and talk to people and find out a lot about the different models of Hispanic ministry and see what works in your local church. I'm not sure that there is one particular model that will work everywhere. In fact, I don't think there is.
Right. And you even mentioned that facilities dictate a lot of what we can do as well.
Exactly.
But we all need to be thinking about that, because probably in your community, wherever you may be listening to this, you have a large group of Spanish-speaking individuals who need to hear about the Lord and need to be discipled in Christ. And so there's a lot that we can do to reach out to them.
Yes, and there are different ways to do it. Now, none of our churches in Oklahoma do this, but there are some churches where they offer a simultaneous translation. They will use audio equipment, earphones, and that kind of thing, and they can provide a simultaneous translation like we do at the National Association for the people who speak Spanish. And if that works well in your church, do it. Now, none of our churches in Oklahoma are following that strategy. All of our churches have English services and Spanish services. But once again, do what works for you. Do what works in your church.
So we encourage you to be thinking about how you might minister to Spanish-speaking people in your particular community. And we also encourage you to seek out answers. You can seek help with the National Association of Free Will Baptists and North American Ministries. And you could do that by emailing us at questions@nafwb.org. Dr. Marberry, you are quite an individual, a theologian, and also we think about your ministry here with the Spanish-speaking population. We so appreciate you. You are a gem. Thank you for being with us today, my brother.
And thank you for having me. It has been an honor to be here, and I pray the Lord will bless our outreach as a denomination, not only to people who speak Spanish, but to people who speak other languages, including English as well.
God bless you. Thank you, Dr. Marberry.